Let's start with the prayers. Do you have the prayers? The prayers you don't? Oh no, I'll send them to you later. Okay. No mic. Oh yes. It's okay? So the right way up? Yep. Okay. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. Until I reach enlightenment, I take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By accumulating merit and wisdom through generosity and the other perfections, may I attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings never be separated from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment and anger that holds some close and others distant. I pay homage to the Sublime Mother of the victorious ones of the three times, the inexpressible, inconceivable, and indescribable perfection of wisdom, which is unborn, unceasing, and of the nature of space, and which is the object of realization of the self-knowing primordial wisdom. Okay. Okay, so sorry for the interruption. As most of you know, we couldn't have class because there were some teachings. I almost canceled today's class when I got the message yesterday. It's maintenance day, which means the power is shut down for the whole day and they're checking the cables and everything. In the past, we actually once canceled class on such a day, but then we didn't have this backup battery. So now with the backup battery that you guys got, internet is working, Wi-Fi hopefully is working, and so we can have class. So I was planning anyway to give you just a short summary of what we've done so far since we didn't have class for the last, 5 days. So just quickly to summarize what we've covered. We spoke at the beginning of this term, we talked about the two paths, the path of accumulation and path of preparation of a bodhisattva, which is the ordinary level of a bodhisattva, the ordinary level when a bodhisattva hasn't realized emptiness yet. So we discussed what are the main practices, the different stages, in connection to the part of the text that is the homage section, as it's called. And then after that, I'm just looking for it, Lama Tsongkhapa right away started with the different grounds. So in other words, the different levels of practice of a bodhisattva. Let me just look for it. Okay, and divides the text in this, there's no light. Okay, it'll come back at 5, but yeah. Okay, where is it? Oh yes. So he starts the text with the general presentation of the grounds, as it's called. So just to remind you, the grounds are the special bodhisattva practices that start once you realize emptiness directly. And to explain what exactly happens. And although that is so highly advanced, as we've heard many times, and as Lama Tsongkhapa himself has noted at some point, these very advanced practices, if we understand them now, we can do the kind of simpler version of them, prepare our mind with the beginner version of these practices, and then be well prepared. Okay, so anyway, Lama Tsongkhapa starts with a general presentation of the grounds. Oh no, he doesn't. Wait, where is it? Yes. That's right. The general presentation, and then divides that into the causal grounds, which are, in other words, the practices themselves, and then the result, Buddhahood. And he explains Buddhahood briefly. But it's mainly about what practices to do. So then the causal grounds, which are the different practices, are divided into what to practice in general, then what to do as an ordinary person, and what to do once you realize emptiness directly, you become an Arya Bodhisattva. And in the beginning, he gives a beautiful, like in particular, this is Lama Tsongkhapa mainly, entering the middle way. There are no root verses dealing with that yet. So therefore, it's just Lama Tsongkhapa explaining what we need to do, or what are the different texts telling us in terms of practice. For instance, Nagarjuna's Precious Garland speaks about the perfections. It describes the perfections in general, so we went through them in general. What are the different perfections? What are their temporary results? Like, what effect do they have? Besides, of course, leading to enlightenment, or taking a practitioner to enlightenment, what positive effect do they have before reaching that state? Then we also discussed other passages, for instance, Nagarjuna's praise to the Dhammadhatu, which talks in particular of Buddha nature. What is that Buddha nature? Lama Tsongkhapa says, well, certain practices advance our Buddha nature. In other words, bring us closer to the state of awakening. And those were briefly mentioned. And then from there, we went on to Nagarjuna's commentary called Compendium of Sutras, in which he talks about the difficulties of certain practices. And we then went into details on these practices. So first of all, attaining this kind of opportunity we have in the form of what's called a precious human existence. And then from there, the difficulty to have faith. What is faith? We discussed faith in a lot of detail. So it's not faith the way we know it from other traditions, but it's rooted in understanding. It's rooted in reasoning, in logic, in analysis. So certain things we just can't know right now. So we take them on faith temporarily. The emphasis is on temporarily until we come to understand them ourselves. So nothing is supposed to be on faith forever. If Buddha, for instance, doesn't have faith, Buddha knows. So the goal is therefore to replace faith with a correct understanding, and also saying that we have faith in so much every day. I mean, like the everyday life is full of, we have faith that the food we eat will not kill us, that the roads that we travel on will not collapse while we drive over them. We have faith that, what else? The doctor is not going to poison us with the medicine he or she gives us. So in that way we have faith in a lot of things, but it's based on reasoning. It's not blind faith. We don't just trust anyone. So the point is, therefore, in Buddhist practice, in the beginning, that kind of faith, because we don't understand how the mind works. We don't understand that the mind continues on from one life to the next, that our actions have consequences, that just as anything you do in your garden has consequences, right? You step on some plants, there's a consequence. You put in the wrong fertilizer, it'll have a consequence. So why would our actions not have consequences? It's absurd to think that whatever we do has no consequences in terms of our future experiences. But that is really difficult to believe at first, because it doesn't seem like that. Good people, terrible things happen to good people, and good things happen to bad people. So it's like, whoa. But of course, it's like, in your garden, if you put the fertilizer in, it's not like your flowers are going to die a second later. Usually it takes some time until the results ripen. Anyway, so all this has to do with faith initially until a direct understanding is achieved. We also talked about, let me just go through it to find the right spot. How difficult it is to generate compassion, and in particular great compassion and bodhicitta, We're just basically giving up our self-centered attitude, which we're just so used to. It's just, we can't help it, we're so used to it. And moreover, we have that misconception, that basic misconception that there's a very concrete I, a very concrete self that we need to defend, that we need to gratify, and so forth. So that's difficult in bodhicitta and so forth. And then there's also certain things that once we accumulate them, it's really difficult to remove the karmic imprints or the karmic consequences of that. For example, injuring a bodhisattva, injuring someone who works for the benefit of all sentient beings, so indirectly you harm all sentient beings. Then we talked about the acts of Mara, as they're called, like certain activities. There are 4 types of Mara. We explained them. They're usually explained in the text, but the Mara here is like preventing someone from practicing the Dharma, for instance. That would also be, for us, if we want to practice, extremely harmful in the sense that we create the causes for us not being able to transform our mind. Then so abandoning the teachings in the sense that out of anger, aversion, we don't have that openness, even if we don't understand things, but just categorically deny that this makes sense and so forth. So it's not saying we can't doubt, we cannot question. Of course we should, we have to, in fact. But out of anger and resentment and saying this doesn't make sense, or this practice is only for study and this is only for practice, where in actuality every teaching is meant to be internalized, to help to transform the mind. But the point is, with the abandoning the Dharma, it's more about aversion, attachment, and so forth. So anyway, these are some of the things Arya Nagarjuna warns us of, and as part of our practice, it's important to be aware of them and understand that it's difficult to, develop some of the qualities such as great compassion for all sentient beings and so forth, and avoiding some other activities that could become a great obstacle. Then Lama Tsongkhapa continues on to explaining how to practice on an ordinary person stage, or just without having realized ultimate reality directly yet. So how to practice then. And he basically says, well, we already discussed this before as part of the homage section. That's why I explained it before. But he also stresses the fact that emptiness doesn't mean nothingness. He talks about, we have to understand emptiness, we have to understand how phenomena really exist, but it's important to know that that doesn't mean, before that he says, first of all, to practice the Dharma effectively, it's not just wisdom, it's also method. We need both method and wisdom. So compassion, love, generosity on one hand, but also an understanding of reality, of how things really exist. If you have only one of the two, your practice won't be complete. And he also warns of, for instance, just focusing on generating calm abide or meditative concentration. That's also not enough. It feels good. All our worries are, we don't even appear to our mind. We're just focused on nothing or on the breath or whatever. But that's not a solution. That's just one tool. We need to have that deep level of concentration to be able to continue. However, it's not enough. Therefore, it's important to, just as when we eat food, and Lama Tsongkhapa doesn't say that, but we don't just eat spinach, right? Or we don't just eat brown rice. Yeah, maybe it's good for you, whole wheat noodles or whatever, but you don't want to just eat that. You want to eat a balanced kind of diet. And so similarly here, balanced practice is important. But also when we talk about emptiness, and of course this text is mainly on emptiness, it's important to know that we're not talking about nothingness. We're not negating everything. We're not negating conventional existence. And some people may think, when we start analyzing things, how does the I exist? How does everything else exist? If we don't find the I that we usually hold on to, we may wrongly believe there is no I. Of course there's an I, but just not the self, the I. That is the object of our mind, constantly thinking, I need this, I don't want that, how dare they insult me, and so forth. So that particular I is perceived in an exaggerated way. The basis is the actual I, but then we exaggerate its existence. We make it so concrete. It seems to be so solid and concrete. And based on that, we hold on to its happiness as being more important than that of others and so forth. Therefore, this understanding how the I really exists is so essential to remove our self-centeredness, our self-cherishing mind. But for that, we need to understand the self does exist and not to fall into the extreme of thinking there's nothing there. All right, so Lama Tsongkhapa explains that to some degree. And then he talks about the Arya grounds, those levels of bodhisattvas once they've realized emptiness directly. And that's the main subject matter of this text. But before going into individually introducing them, he gives like a collective kind of introduction. Okay, so when do they start? When do you, if you enter the bodhisattva path, on what level do you attain what's called the first ground? So on the third level, on the path of seeing. All right, so path of accumulation, path of preparation, and then you enter what's called the path of seeing. You realize phenomena as they really are directly, experience them directly. And at that level, you enter the first ground, what's called the first ground. So that is followed by, let me just look, oh yeah, and then the emphasis is also saying that, well, when we talk about the grounds, these 10 grounds, the essence of them is that direct realization of emptiness. It's like knowing phenomena, experiencing phenomena, the way they actually exist, but with a directly experiencing mind. And so from that point of view, we distinguish between 10 different types. But of course, as it's said later on, there's more to it. On each level, there's not just the understanding of reality. There are other distinctions that will be explained in a moment. But first, Lama Tsongkhapa mentions Acharya Chandrakirti's auto-commentary, which is a commentary on entering the middle way, in which he first describes the nature of the ground. What is this ground? What does it mean? What sustains these grounds? How that's number 2, and then how the mind realizing emptiness directly acquires the name ground, and then the etymology, the meaning of the name ground. I mean, why would you call a mind ground? In Tibetan, it's sa. Sa can mean ground, but it can also mean soil. But in this context, of course, it doesn't mean soil, it means just ground. So first of all, therefore, Lama Tsongkhapa explains the nature of the ground. Okay, so here we're talking about a mind that realizes emptiness directly, an uncontaminated gnosis. So we talk about a mind that is contaminated and uncontaminated. Again, it sounds like cleaning or something, like, oh, that's so contaminated, like, oh, this room is contaminated, or I don't know, or it sounds like being poisoned in an epidemic, like being contaminated, etc. But that's just a language used in order to indicate that our mind has this incredible potential, but it's contaminated. So the basic nature of our mind is never affected. It's just like water. When you have muddy water, the water is not affected. You can remove the mud from the water, which is another way of saying we have Buddha nature. We have this pure mind that in its actual nature does not differ from the mind of a Buddha or a liberated being. So that's the good news. But for the time being, there's a contamination. There are certain wrong views we carry with us that influence our mind in such a way that negative emotions arise. So our mind has fallen into an exaggerated state. It's fallen into an exaggerated state. So we perceive things in an exaggerated way, and they become contradictory. And then based on that, we have exaggerated emotions. Attachment is just an exaggerated emotion. Attachment is, well, the exaggerated version of love, I'd say. Like loving someone, what do we want? We want them to be happy. Love is defined as a mind that wants another person to be happy. Attachment holds on to that person to such a degree, you want now this person to make you happy. So it's not so much about their happiness. Their happiness is only important in the context of my happiness. If they're happy, I'm happy, okay, then their happiness is all right. But in the end, like the moment attachment comes in, that exaggerated emotion, then it's all about me, and we don't want to let the person go, we want to control them. So you see there's this exaggerated aspect of this particular emotion, or aversion. Aversion in the sense of, well, there's the normal version, the normal version of that particular mind, which would be seeing something negative, something not approving of something, feeling determined to change something. I mean, maybe help the person to overcome these negative actions and whatever. But aversion is not to recognize the action for what it is, but exaggerating the negativity and now seeing the person who's performed this negativity, who's done that negativity, as one with the action. So instead, we could hate the action. We don't hate the action; we hate the person, or we have aversion towards the person. So it totally blows up. It exaggerates what's there, and that's why we suffer. Thus, it's important to generate an understanding of how phenomena really are. So this uncontaminated gnosis is a mind, or this uncontaminated wisdom is a mind that is not affected by these wrong views, by the afflictions. In particular, by our root misconception, perceiving things in an exaggerated way, as very concrete and solely and objectively over there. That's big in Buddhism. There's no objective reality. Nothing exists objectively. Everything exists subjectively. It all comes from the mind, which is the most beautiful message I think there is. Because there's only one thing we can change: our mind. I mean, we can try to change other people, we can try to change, but usually we pretty much fail. We can influence other people to a certain degree, but it's so much work, and in the end, it doesn't usually work, does it? Of course, we shouldn't give up, but the point is, the good news is the one thing that we can truly change is our own mental consciousness. And in that way, we already change our perception. So we no longer hate people for what they do, but instead we can replace it with compassion and be so much more effective. Of course, in our effort to help them reach that same state. Yeah, but so the point is, therefore, right now our mind is contaminated by root misconceptions and the imprints, the residual traces that leaves behind. And the only mind that is not contaminated would be, as for us as non-enlightened non-Buddhas, would be the mind realizing emptiness directly. So that's the nature, therefore, of, in particular, the mind that knows reality as it is. It's uncontaminated. All right. And then contaminated is every mind that is tainted by the ignorance, that's tainted by our misconception. All right. So we discussed that to some degree. And then the second nature, the second quality of a ground, besides consisting basically on that wisdom, consisting of that direct realization of emptiness, is that it's sustained by great compassion. That's the emotional aspect again. So just directly realizing emptiness, wow, amazing, it's great. Directly realizing ultimate reality, amazing. But it needs to be sustained by a very powerful emotion, and that is great compassion. What is great compassion? It is a loving attitude that not only wishes for all sentient beings to be free from any kind of suffering, any kind of samsaric experience, together with their causes, but that wishes to personally contribute to that, to personally help other sentient beings in whichever way possible to overcome their sufferings. So that is great compassion. That's what sustains. So the second point of what Lama Tsongkhapa, or what actually Acharya Chandrakirti explained, the second point of what sustains each ground. And in this context, again, Lama Tsongkhapa also talks about wisdom versus ignorance or the misconception. So we're aiming for an understanding of reality that is free from the cataract or the eye disease, the floaters, as we've chosen to use as a better example, like floaters, where things appear to your mind but they don't exist, which is similar to the appearance we have right now of all phenomena. But understanding that we can remove our misconception, but that doesn't mean the mind goes out of existence, which some people believe to happen. Even some Buddhists believe that the mind goes out of existence. Certainly some non-Buddhist schools believe if we don't have afflictions, we can't exist. And that's a very common view in the West as well. The view that it's part of our mind, it's in the nature of our mind to get angry, it's in the nature of our mind to have attachment. And it seems that way. I mean, for our ordinary mind, it feels that way, like, oh gosh, I can't even think what it's like to not have attachment, to not have anger, and so forth. But that's simply because we haven't removed the root of these afflictions. And so Lama Tsongkhapa points out, don't think you go out of existence if these afflictions are gone. No, then your mind can actually manifest its fullest potential. All right. And he gives this beautiful example from the praise to the Dhammadhatu. Remember the example of the armor? What is the example? The armor? Asbestos. Right. I mean, here in the English translation it just says chainmail armor, but actually I did a little bit of research on it. You remember the Chinese sources and stuff, where it seems to be saying there was a particular armor used in China, definitely, coming from the Romans, apparently, according to this Chinese source. It actually came from the Romans, not a very healthy armor, but anyway, it's made of asbestos. But that apparently, like, after it was worn for some time, it became grimy and disgusting and dirty. You just had to throw it in fire. And then, all the grime, all the dirt, that was burned away, and it came out sparkling white. So that was the way to do your laundry in the old days with asbestos. So it's a bit like that example of having that particular armor. You can remove what's extra. It's not in the nature of the mind. You can burn that away with wisdom. So I think it's a really beautiful example. But you still have the armor itself. It doesn't go out of existence. And in fact, it's now even more capable to do what is supposed to, what it can do. Okay. Anyway, so that is the part about what sustains, so the nature of the ground, and that's just roughly. Of course, we're going into great details on this, but it just gives like a rough overview, what sustains it, and how the uncontaminated gnosis acquires the name ground. That's the third explanation given by Acharya Chandakirti here and mentioned by Lama Tsongkhapa. So he says that although on each level a bodhisattva realizes emptiness, experiences ultimate reality directly, but there are differences between each level. So the object is always ultimate reality. The way it is perceived is the same, but there are important differences, so different facets. Those are fourfold. What are they? They are first, certain qualities, like qualities that proliferate as the bodhisattva kind of lives through every successive stage. And then secondly, also their transformative power intensifies. So every bodhisattva, their power intensifies, their strength. The strength of every mind enhances to such a degree that it actually starts removing afflictions from our mind. Every one of these direct realizations of emptiness actually cuts away at aversion, at anger, and so forth. Different levels, of course, but slowly removes them. And then each ground is also marked by special excellence in one of the perfections. So on the first ground, generosity. The bodhisattva engages in generosity. We'll discuss generosity to some detail, as well as on the next ground. The second ground, it's morality. On the third ground, it's patience, and so on. And then number 4 is also that as the fruits of the practice increase, then the Bodhisattva's influence also increases, the capacity to benefit others and to have a positive impact on other living beings. So in that way, although on each ground they experience ultimate nature or ultimate reality directly, but not every ground is the same, or they're all different, in other words. For the distinct in terms of their facets being different, as Lama Tsongkhapa says, which means these 4 qualities, they differ by way of these 4 different qualities. Okay, and then it goes on to say, but it gives all this explanation, and then at the very end, Lama Tsongkhapa cites a quote from the 10 Ground Sutra, saying, well, actually this is totally beyond us at this point. To fully understand it, you really have to experience it. So it's good to know about it, to know what direction we're going, but to completely understand it the way it is, you need to really experience it yourself. So he gives this example, just as we can't see when a bird flew in the sky, we don't see the traces of that. We don't see where if we look at the bird while they're flying, okay, that's different. But if an hour ago a bird kind of flew across the sky, we don't see any traces. You can be as clever as it gets, you can't see it. And you can't describe that path exactly. So similarly here, to know how phenomena really exist, that understanding, that direct understanding or direct experience of ultimate reality, the person who experiences it cannot put it in words and fully in words in such a way that we fully understand it. And the same is true for us trying to understand it. No, it's really difficult. It's such a deep experience that it's very hard to share with others. So something to basically develop ourselves. Okay, so that's the collective explanation we went through on the grounds, and now the individual grounds are shown. So the first ground called perfect joy. The first ground called perfect joy. So that's when we started with the root text. That is, no, it's not, we didn't start with it, but it's verse 4, where Lama Tsongkhapa once again says that on that level, bodhisattvas fall under compassion's sway. Having practiced great compassion before, great compassion is still the driving force of the bodhisattvas. They do realize emptiness directly for the first time. They remove already some of the afflictions, at least the ones acquired in this lifetime, not the ones you're born with, but based on those we were born with, we acquire intellectually and acquire new ones, and those ones are removed. So that's such a relief that they experience this great joy, right? The mind is just free of the heaviness of these afflictions. That's why I think also a lot of people like this meditation on concentration. Because in that moment when you're fully focused, none of the afflictions arise. Well, ideally, if the meditation goes well. So no affliction arises, and there's that state of relief, right? I mean, why do we suffer? It's not so much the external circumstances, it's what our mind does with them. We worry, we get upset, we react in certain ways. So what we learn when we practice the Dharma, when we're around obnoxious people, we learn to be really happy to be around them because they give us the opportunity to practice patience. So usually we're like, oh no, can't be around them, my life is so miserable. We feel depressed. But it's really, it's not the people themselves, it's what our mind does with the situation. I mean, a bodhisattva, we've heard of Atisha, the great Dibamkara Atisha, when he traveled to Tibet. He took this tea boy with him because he was so annoying. So he felt, he's the perfect person to teach me patience. So what am I going to, if I've got no one to teach me patience, what am I going to do? So I need this obnoxious person. So his friends and attendants and so forth, they were like, don't take him along, he's so difficult. And he's like, no, I need him, right? We tried to avoid them. Atisha brings them along, right? So we should be so lucky to have someone who presses all our buttons so we know, oh, this is what we still have to work on, okay? Yeah, so therefore it's really just a matter of attitude. You use it in a positive way, that's what it becomes. You use it in a negative, that's what it becomes. So there's so much freedom there, actually. Right now, it doesn't seem there is, because right now our mind just reacts and there's no much control, and then the mind being controlled by the afflictions. But we can learn that through meditations to first learn to control the mind, learn to control the afflictions, and then actually rejoice when things become difficult and give us the opportunity to grow, right? So anyway, the point is therefore that once bodhisattvas attain that first ground and they're already removed some of these afflictions, there's such a relief in the mind. Yeah, and we can imagine that happening because even when we just don't think about a problem, there's a relief. So, but if the problem is totally gone, in the sense that our mind, the one that actually really causes the problem, the affliction, if that is gone, there's a huge relief. So in Buddhism, liberation is not being free of the obnoxious people, but being free of the aversion that gives rise to our problem. Okay. But what we also learned is that the bodhisattvas, so they realize emptiness for the first time, they come out of that realization, have removed some of the afflictions, experience incredible joy and bliss, and wow, amazing. That's why the whole ground is given that name, perfect joy. But at the same time, they're still driven by that great compassion. Now they've got more space in their mind to focus on other sentient beings. And they engage in something that is very, very powerful, aspiration. They really utilize the power of the mind. Of course, we have this saying, be careful what you wish for, right? It's actually a really interesting saying, be careful what we wish for. But it shows that a lot of things, but the first step to reaching or to achieving something is to wish to achieve it. So if you don't wish to achieve it, it's not going to happen. It's not like this, like you wish to, I don't know, win the lottery. I mean, first you have to have the wish, and that gives rise to buying a lottery ticket. It's not like kicking and screaming, someone is just going to give you $1 million without you buying a lottery. It's just not going to happen. So the point is, whatever we do, the wish goes first. But what we don't realize is how powerful that wish can be. So just wishing it once or twice, it's not really going to do much. So it has to be continuously done, repeatedly done, and with a certain intensity. And that then leads us to creating the causes and conditions for that. Just wishing is also not enough, right? Wishing to win the lottery but not buying a lottery ticket is ludicrous. I mean, it's absurd. So therefore, the first step is wishes, and then that makes us accumulate the causes and conditions for something to happen. And the thing is, it all comes from the mind. Whatever we experience right now, everything comes from our own mind. That's a very powerful idea, and we've heard probably the statement, if you want to know what your mind was like in your previous life, look at your situation right now. If you want to know what your situation will be in the future, look at your present mind. So everything comes from the mind. Our experiences all come from the mind. Certain situation we find ourselves in and other people don't find themselves in. Why? Oh, it's just coincidence. Yeah, right. When it comes to gardening, there's no coincidence. But when it comes to our experience, there is. It's a little inconsistent, isn't it? So it's causes and conditions, sometimes they play a huge part. But what we experience, that's just random, doesn't make sense. I mean, even in modern science, there's no randomness. In biology, is there any randomness? No causes and conditions, but it just happens. No way. Or in mathematics, or in physics, and whatever else there is. There's always causes and conditions. So therefore, what happens in our life, there are causes and conditions. And even if similar things happen to two people, one person hates it and the other person loves it. What? If there's just this objective reality, we should all see it in the same way. But again, it has to do with our own mind, right? Give a Tibetan an olive. Give an Israeli an olive. Depends on the olive. A good quality, right? I don't even know how you get that kind of quality, but you know, Tom, you would know, right? Like a really nice olive. But I remember once, like a Tibetan friend of mine once ate an olive. It was like, ooh. Later on, actually, they liked it. But yeah, anyway. So the point is, therefore, you can experience the same thing, but have a very different experience. I mean, a very different reaction. So, therefore, what I'm trying to say here is that aspiration is really important. Going back to aspiration. A bodhisattva on that level, their mind has become so powerful, and now they make these aspirations. May I be able to benefit other sentient beings in such a way that I come into a room and people feel better. Isn't that a beautiful aspiration? Right? That people just seeing or hearing me, may they feel better. May their problems be... And you know, there are people like that. I've never met anyone who's been to an audience with His Holiness and came out very depressed. Right? No, people are beaming. Right? It's not just their white katas that they still carry, they still wear oftentimes when they come out of the audience, kind of brightly shining from afar. No, but it's also just being in the presence of someone so amazing. So how come they have this influence on us? Not just His Holiness, the other lamas as well. I just spent 3 days in the presence of Khyentse Jadu Rinpoche. And it was difficult, you know, sitting there for 4 hours, and the sound system was a challenge, and understanding and being totally focused. But after these 3 days, I felt so happy. Not because it was over, but I mean, that was also, it was really hard, you know, like, no, but it was like, wow, I was so inspired. If anyone else had given these teachings, it'd be like, so what's next? But Rinpoche has this incredible effect on people's minds. You know, you feel like something has changed. So that's through the power of this person. And in the case of Khyentse Jadu Rinpoche, he did exactly these practices, these aspirations. I don't know what level he's on, I have no idea, but I'm pretty sure really high up there, because of the effect he has on other people's minds. And that is through, first, the aspirations. You want to have this effect on other people. Isn't it wonderful? If you could just walk into a room and people suddenly forget about their problems and just feel happy. Who wouldn't want that? Raise your hand if you don't want that. Right? Isn't that amazing? If you just have that effect on people, and there are plenty of people like that. Of course, we have to also have an openness from our own side to receive that special, whatever you call it, charisma or whatever. Yeah, I don't know what to call that. But you always need two sides, you know, like you need two to tango, you need two to clap your hands. You have the Lama on one hand, but the openness to also to receive that inspiration, if you like. But yeah, where does that come from? From these incredible ways in which they train their minds by always may I, right? These wishes, and then that's the first cause. They start accumulating the causes and conditions, and at some point it becomes reality. So therefore here it says the Samantabhadra's prayers. You do the Samantabhadra, you engage in Samantabhadra's prayers. Where did we get to? I'm already on page 102 now. Does anyone remember where we got to, the last class?
106.
106?
Yeah, no?
Oh, wow. All right, I have to work on that new material. I've got until 120.
Weren't you going to start with what the above citation means?
I remember this prayer, the prayer we went through. Okay, all right, we did that. So it's about the
we did engaging by means of imagination.
Engaging.
105.
105. Oh, engaging. Okay, all right. So we finished that, right? Yes. Okay. All right. So here, yeah, in this last chapter or this last section we went through on page 105, basically, what were we saying here? Oh, it's just saying that. Again, talking about when do you achieve that first ground? Well, not on the path of preparation, just no way. It's only once you realize empty is directly on the path of seeing. Okay, that's pretty much what it says. Okay, we don't need to go through this. Okay. And then I'll now read Lama Tsongkhapa, now that we reached where we got to. So what the above citation means is that this is a stage where the ultimate awakening mind has not yet been generated. So the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, you don't have ultimate bodhicitta yet. So what is ultimate bodhicitta? Did we go through the different types of bodhicitta yet? No, not yet. Oh yeah, we'll explain. It will be explained here. So generally speaking, however, he says, as I explained above, it is accepted in this Madhyamika tradition that even from a stage lower than this, the path of preparation, the mind for unexcelled awakening has already been generated and there are bodhisattvas below this level. So don't worry if you don't understand anything, it will be explained. Shantideva's Compendium of Training 2 establishes by means of numerous sutra citations the presence of the awakening mind in ordinary beings. So those who assert that such beings are not actual, but only mere facsimiles of bodhisattvas are engaging in false explanations. All right, so that's what Lama Tsongkhapa says. So what does he do here? He distinguishes between two types of bodhicitta, ultimate and conventional bodhicitta. That's on page 106. So he refers to the citation from the author commentary, Acharya Chandakirti's author commentary or commentary on his own text. What does he explain? That ultimate bodhicitta does not arise even at the highest level of the path of preparation. So these are the first two levels, path of accumulation, path of preparation, ultimate bodhicitta. Even if you're on the highest level of the path of preparation, no way will you have ultimate bodhicitta. But conventional bodhicitta, which is the altruistic resolve to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings, that of course arises much earlier, even before the path of preparation. Okay. So according to many commentators, the term bodhicitta, and not everyone agrees, but the term bodhicitta refers specifically to the conventional awakening mind. Bodhicitta. So what is bodhicitta? The wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. So some commentators would say bodhicitta and conventional bodhicitta are taken, they're synonymous. While ultimate bodhicitta is just called bodhicitta. It's not actual bodhicitta. It's not the actual awakening mind. It pertains to the wisdom aspect of the path, whereas conventional bodhicitta is connected to the method aspect. So we distinguish between path, conventional bodhicitta, method, more emotional, altruistic mind, love and compassion. So it's more this, I would say more the emotional aspect of the path. It's difficult, like what does method even mean? It's called method in Tibetan. So love, compassion, generosity, all these minds, the category of them is called method. Why are they called method? The wisdom is also a method. Right? It's also a method. So in terms of the word method, tap in Tibetan. Tap in Tibetan really means method. So if someone asks, what methods do we have to solve this problem? You would say, tab karir, tablam, tab. And so method in the sense, yeah, why is it called method? It's definitely something you could debate, something you would debate, right? Like when you debate, so what is the reason for calling that method? And the understanding of reality, that is also a type of method. Really, I mean, it's a method to overcoming the afflictions that is given the name wisdom. And even method like love and compassion, they're very much rooted in wisdom. But okay, you wouldn't call them wisdom, but still. Okay, anyway, something to reflect on. But still, the point is that conventional bodhicitta, the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, so that aspiration, the mind that aspires to reach the fully enlightened state of a Buddha for the sake of all sentient beings, is called actual bodhicitta, or is part of the method aspect, while ultimate bodhicitta is called, it's just called bodhicitta. So it's the mind that realizes emptiness directly. The mind that realizes emptiness directly from the path of seeing onwards, that you achieve from the path of seeing onwards, is called ultimate bodhicitta. Why is it called the awakening mind? What do you think? Why is it called awakening mind? Why is it called bodhicitta? Yes, Tome?
Maybe this mind which directly sees emptiness is the mind which achieves enlightenment.
So the mind, which is the direct realization of emptiness, is the mind that achieves enlightenment.
Like, or actually steps towards it.
It's actually the one that does what?
Steps towards it, like gets closer to it.
Oh, it's that which takes us closer to enlightenment. But so does generosity and patience.
But not directly, more indirectly.
More indirectly. Okay, so it's more directly.
Those are afflictive from the obscurations.
The direct realization of emptiness is that which removes the afflictions. Yes. So bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta, is the wish to do so. Right? It's actually that which wishes, or the mind that wishes to attain full enlightenment. That is that driving force behind the wisdom realizing emptiness directly, which then removes whatever needs to be removed. Okay? So why does that mind directly realizing emptiness remove the afflictions?
Because the afflictions are based on ignorance of reality, and this ignorance of reality is directly opposing or directly opposite.
Okay.
The mind which realizes reality correctly.
Yes, so I'll just repeat what Thomas says. The afflictions, anger, aversion, whatever there is, whatever is really in the way. And Buddhist practice, to summarize Buddhist practice, it's all about dealing with the afflictions. If you want to know what Buddhist practice is all about, is reducing the afflictions and eventually overcoming them. Not just for our own benefit, of course, for the benefit of all sentient beings. But basically, my teachers used to say that. You know what Buddhist practice is about? Removing the afflictions. That's really Buddhism in a nutshell. But of course, there's more to it, and how you do it, and also removing the subtle traces, etc. But yes, so Tomer is saying all the afflictions are removed by the mind realizing empty, or realizing, but the mind realizing. What does it mean? Realizing emptiness. It means realizing the lack of intrinsic existence. Realizing that nothing exists intrinsically. That's the mind realizing emptiness. And so the mind that holds that all phenomena exist intrinsically is the root cause of all our afflictions. That's why we have aversion. That's why we have attachment and so forth. So you have two minds that are direct opposites in terms of what they perceive. One perceives phenomena exist intrinsically, objectively, independent, well, not independently, but objectively, and the other mind knows they don't. Well, guess which one is rooted in reality? The second one. And the second one can remove the first one, because they're, in terms of what they perceive, direct opposites. If nothing exists intrinsically, inherently, and so forth, and as part of the discussion we'll go a little bit into it. I think it's part of the questions that someone asked. But anyway, so what does it mean to exist intrinsic? Oh yeah, from its own side. Phenomena existing from its own side. That was one of the discussions. So as if phenomena, like a table being a table from its own side. It's got nothing to do with anything else. It just is a table. So that sense of reality we have when it comes to tables or anything else, that sense is holding on to intrinsic existence. And that is not how phenomena really exist. So once you understand that phenomena don't exist in that way, the absence of such intrinsic existence, so you experience it directly, it removes that mind. How could it not? And if it removes that misconception, then all the other afflictions that would potentially, if it hadn't been removed, would arise from it, they're gone. So it's a pretty simple logic. Yeah. Okay, so therefore, it's that mind that, assisted by, of course, conventional bodhicitta, the wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. Whoa. No.
First transition.
Yes. So it's that mind which actually is responsible, is the tool to bringing enlightenment. That is the mind that which that therefore is, well, as Tome was saying, and I believe that's true, is therefore called ultimate conventional mind, ultimate bodhicitta. Okay, so you need those two. And as His Holiness has said so many times, Buddhist practice comes down to, and of course I said dealing with the afflictions, that is still true, but how do you do that? Bodhicitta and emptiness. If you focus on these two practices, make these your main practices, you're okay. Right? Okay. It's difficult, of course, but all right. So therefore, where did I get to? Yeah, so also because conventional bodhicitta serves as the gateway to the universal vehicle, to the Mahayana, or the universal vehicle, the moment it is generated marks entry into the path of accumulation. So you have the two stages, path of accumulation, path of preparation. What is the gateway? It's bodhicitta, conventional bodhicitta. You become a bodhisattva by definition. The moment you have that mind, that spontaneous wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings, driven by this powerful compassion called great compassion, by definition you're a bodhisattva. But you have not reached the path of seeing yet, so you don't have ultimate bodhicitta yet, you only have conventional bodhicitta. Therefore, bodhicitta is present in practitioners on the path of accumulation and preparation, both of which are counted as ordinary path. Why? Because emptiness has not been directly realized. And then Lama Tsongkhapa, citing the great Bodhisattva Shantideva's text called Compendium of Training, not the Way of the Bodhisattva, the one that we're more familiar with usually, but another one, which has been translated into English, so maybe you want to look into it. Now is the time, it's been translated. There's some footnotes somewhere in the text giving you the name of the English text. Probably the first time I mentioned the text. So anyway, in this text, Lama Tsongkhapa, so citing Shantideva's Compendium of Training, Lama Tsongkhapa emphasizes that even ordinary beings or non-Aryas may authentically possess bodhicitta. So he decisively rejects the mistaken notion that those who generate bodhicitta prior to the path of seeing are bodhisattvas only in name. They're actually bodhisattvas, they're not just bodhisattvas in name. Because once conventional bodhicitta has genuinely arisen, that person is a true bodhisattva, regardless of the stage of the path they have reached. So he's emphasizing that because I suppose at the time when Lama Tsongkhapa was around, some people would say they're not bodhisattvas. I mean, it seems, especially when you study Acharya Chandrakirti's text, Entering the Middle Way, where every ground is called first bodhicitta or fast awakening mind, second awakening mind, and so forth. Oh, the first awakening mind. Oh, it means I didn't have bodhicitta before that. Awakening mind is actually the Tibetan translation of a specific term. Do you know what it's the translation of? Trinley? Do you know what it is? Awakening mind. What is bodhicitta in Tibetan? Changchup-sem. What is awakening mind? It's not Changchup-sem. Bodhicitta, body means enlightenment, chitta means mind. So mind of enlightenment is a literal translation of bodhicitta. And we usually use the word bodhicitta because it's shorter, I don't know. But there's another word in Tibetan. There's another word in Tibetan, and that is usually translated as awakening mind, and these two are synonymous. But in the context of entering the middle way, awakening mind is used more. I give you a hint. The first syllable is sem. Semgye, very good. So the Tibetan word is semgye, so awakening mind. I think that's a good translation. Yeah. It's not awakened yet. It's the awakening mind. So in the sense of like working towards becoming awakened. Yeah. So awakening mind. Okay. Pardon? Chanchu-sem. Chanchu-sem means the mind of enlightenment. Semgye means awakening mind. Sometimes people say the generating mind or something. I don't know, it sounds weird, like the generating mind, the mind generation or something. That sounds really weird. But actually, awakening mind is a good word. It's a good translation. It makes much more sense. Yeah. Okay. Yes, so It may be, like what I said, because since Semkye, or awakening mind, and bodhicitta are synonymous, when it talks about the first ground being the first bodhicitta, or the first awakening mind, some people may think, oh, it's the first one, there was none before. But no, he's just talking about, here, this is talking about the ultimate awakening mind. That is the first ground, is given the name ultimate awakening ground, really. Okay. Here, one might contend, Lama Tsongkhapa says, so illuminating the intent says, here a person might contend the compendium of Abhidharma. Who composed the compendium of Abhidharma? Who composed treasury of Abhidharma? Abhidharma Kosha. Vasubandhu. So this is a really important text that we study as part of the study. It's called Abhidharma Kosha. It's usually, it describes phenomenology. It just gives you a good sense of different divisions, etc. Okay, it's by Vasubandhu. But then there's another compendium. Abhidharma is just another word for wisdom. So there's another Abhidharma text. So not the treasury of Abhidharma, but the compendium of Abhidharma. Abhidharma Samuchaya in Sanskrit. Who composed that? Who composed it? No, someone close to a Sangha. His brother. What's his name? His half-brother. What's the name of the half-brother of Acharya Vasubandhu? Arya Sangha. Arya Sangha. So they were half-brothers, actually. Same mother, different fathers. Okay. So the compendium of Abhidharma describes the stage of entry to the fruit of stream entry for a hira, for a person on the foundational vehicle, as the point when, on the Shravaka path of preparation, a single sitting would lead to the attainment of the first fruition. So the analogy I've cited above about the Shravaka path does not hold. That's what Lama Tsongkhapa says. Vasubandhu's treasury of Abhidharma states that the stage of entry to stream entry is attained on the Arya level, whereas the compendium of Abhidharma presents it differently, as cited above. Of these two divergent positions, this master Chandakirti accords with the treasury of Abhidharma. He also accords with what is described in the compendium of sutras as follows. Okay, so anyway, I'll be explained. I know it's difficult if you don't have the background, but it's just a simple comparison here. I'll just continue to read it, and then hopefully it'll be clearer as we continue on. It's very traditional what comes now. Compared to someone offering on a daily basis heavenly nourishment endowed with 100-fold flavor and heavenly garments to trainees following by way of faith, as numerous as the atoms in the entire universe, a person offering a single meal for a single day to a trainee following by way of reality generates incalculable and far greater merit. Again, compared to someone making similar offerings to trainees following by way of reality, as numerous as the followers of faith in the preceding example, another person who offers a single meal for a single day to a person on the 8th stage generates incalculable and far greater merit. These two types of trainees are clearly on the path of accumulation and path of preparation, and not on the Arya level. All right, this is really, what is going on? All right, it's not that difficult to understand. So, illuminating the intent, Lama Tsongkhapa's text here is working through a debate about where exactly the stage of stream entry. So, stream entry is another word for ultimate bodhicitta, but except for a hira. So, a practitioner of the foundational vehicle working towards self-liberation, they also realize emptiness directly on the path of seeing, their individual, their specific path of seeing. So just to understand that there's great similarity between a person who aims for personal liberation only, so a person of the Hinayana or foundational vehicle, and a bodhisattva. It's made in such a way that even the stages are named the same, but it doesn't mean that they are the same. But they also go through path of accumulation, path of preparation, path of seeing, path of meditation. So they're named the same. And there's great similarity on the first two levels, path of accumulation, path of preparation. They don't realize emptiness directly yet. On the path of seeing, they do. So the wisdom realizing emptiness is the same, but they're sustained by different minds. It's not great compassion, but the aspiration to overcome samsara, to attain, to get out of it, being fed up with this kind of life, having this kind of mind and body. You want to overcome it, you want to attain liberation, what's called liberation. But other sentient beings, although there's incredible love and compassion for them, there's no personal, they don't take a personal responsibility to lead all sentient beings toward that state. They don't need to. For liberation, you don't need that attitude. So anyway, here when they reach the path of seeing, instead of saying they attained ultimate bodhicitta, ultimate bodhicitta, they say the person becomes the person enters stream entry, or the person approaches stream entry. So stream entry, that's the word they use. So you enter the stream towards liberation. So you're really like carried off by that stream, if you like, towards liberation. Now things are happening, in other words. You realize emptiness directly, you're experiencing things directly. This is all the change you need. Previously, you realized ultimate reality only conceptually. If you realize ultimate reality conceptually, you cannot remove any afflictions. The mind doesn't have that power. So the power of a mind to remove afflictions is only attained on the path of seeing, when you experience ultimate reality directly. So then you enter the stream entry. But there's an objection here raised. Someone argues that the analogy given in Acharya Chandrakirti's auto-commentary, so here an analogy is given, just as a hearer attains stream entry once they achieve the path of their own particular path of seeing, a bodhisattva attains ultimate bodhicitta once they realize emptiness directly on their path of seeing. So you see the similarity? So someone raises, says this is not correct, because according to Arya Asanga's Compendium of Abhidharma, a practitioner on the hearer's path of preparation can already be said to have reached the stage of entering stream entry, or the result of stream entry. They already entered that. That's what Arya Asanga says. This is like a debate when you study other subjects. This is mentioned. But usually in the Tibetan tradition, that's not accepted. At least not in the Gelug tradition. At that point, the practice is so advanced that a single session of meditation would be sufficient to bring them to the first result of stream entry. If this were the case, then the earlier analogy drawn by Acharya Chandrakirti concerning the hearer path would not hold. So those who follow Arya Asanga's view, who says that you enter stream entry, or you approach stream entry already on the path of preparation, they can't say it's just like the hearer, the bodhisattva also attains ultimate bodhicitta on the path of seeing. It doesn't work, because yes, ultimate bodhicitta is attained on the path of seeing, but if stream entry is achieved already earlier, then one can't be the analogy of the other. So in other words, in the auto-commentary it says, just as a practitioner of the foundational vehicle enters the result of stream entry on the path of seeing, so does a bodhisattva attain ultimate bodhicitta on the path of seeing. But Arya Asanga says, no, you achieve stream entry before. Right? So if you accept that, that analogy cannot be used. But in reply, Acharya Chandrakirti points to Master Vasubandhu's Treasury of Abhidharma, which maintains that the stage of entering stream entry is reached only on the level of an Arya. It's only reached then. So there's this disagreement between the two texts. That is when practitioners have attained the direct realization of emptiness. The Compendium of Abhidharma, by contrast, places the stage earlier. Between these two conflicting accounts, Acharya Chandrakirti accepts Master Vasubandhu's position. Okay. So Acharya Chandrakirti finds support in Arya Nagarjuna's compendium of sutras. So actually, if we have an actual sutra, we follow that. But if there's no sutra quote that in this case would establish that, then you follow Arya Nagarjuna's text. So Arya Nagarjuna being called the second Buddha. Therefore, in this tradition, if you can't find a sutra quote, you find Arya Nagarjuna's quotes. Okay, so in there, he's saying no, the stream entry, the stream entry only happens once you become an Arya. And he gives now a reason for that. Because he sets out a comparison between three kinds of practitioners, which are distinguished by their level of realization and stage on the path, and shows how much merit others accumulate by making offerings to them. This is really weird, isn't it? So if I do some virtuous action towards a particular person, the kind of positive potential that I accumulate depends on the person. Isn't that weird? It seems like, well, my virtue is my virtue. It has nothing to do with the person. I make offerings to, I don't know, whoever, whether they're highly advanced or not, it doesn't make a difference. It's my motivation. But it's not like that. There's something called the power of the object. It's quite interesting, that idea, isn't it? The power of the object. So we say there's nothing intrinsically this, that, and the other. And still we say there are certain objects, when you accumulate merit, if you do something positive towards them, you benefit greater. Now with a bodhisattva it makes sense. If someone is a bodhisattva, if you benefit a bodhisattva, and the bodhisattva, their goal is to benefit all sentient beings, you're indirectly benefiting all sentient beings, don't you? Right? If you, like a bodhisattva's whole life, whole existence, is dedicated towards the benefit of all sentient beings. It's other sentient beings, others before self, in every situation. It's hard to believe for us, where it's self before others. But that's the main difference, of course, between ordinary non-bodhisattvas and bodhisattvas, is just focused on others. So then, if we benefit a bodhisattva, of course, it's very difficult to know who is a bodhisattva. Not that easy to know. But let's say we do know, then their efforts, their activities, always directed towards benefiting others. We are also benefiting others in that indirect way. I mean, if you support someone who just is about to find a cure to cancer versus supporting someone who works in a bank, who do you benefit more, right? The person who is about to find a cure to cancer. Of course, we're in that way indirectly benefiting everyone who has cancer, for instance, or potentially will get cancer in the future. So, but this is not all. So it's not just what they're doing. It's in general also someone who's working towards self-liberation, not for the benefit of all sentient beings. And still, there is this difference in terms of the object. What is the logic behind that? Just even someone on the way to self-liberation. If I make offerings to them, I accumulate more merit. And there's nothing wrong with merit. So we may think, oh, that's really selfish. I'm not going to give to the beggar. I'm rather going to give to the person who works towards self-liberation. I mean, I only have a certain amount of money. So I'm going to give my money mainly to that person who works towards self-liberation and not to the beggar. That seems really unfair. That seems really unfair, selfish. So is there anything wrong with it, or what do you think? This is like an idea, this is so common. But for us, I think in the West, a little difficult. I mean, of course, if the beggar really needs it and they're desperate and they're going to die, of course, by all means. But we're not talking about here like someone is about to starve, and then there's this arhat who's really rich, and we give our money to the rich. No, it's not about that. I mean, that would be too extreme. Of course, if they're desperate and they need it more than anyone else, it's a different situation. But we're not talking about this here, right? We're talking about two individuals, just an ordinary person, versus someone who's highly advanced on the path. So in that case, it is recommended to benefit the person highly on the path, because the merit for us is greater. And merit is this positive potential that enables us to practice more effectively. What is merit? I mean, I give the analogy of money in the bank. It's kind of like spiritual money. It's kind of like spiritual money. It's like so the more, in like terms of materialism, here we can use an example of materialism. The more money you have, the more your wishes on the material level can come true. And I'm saying just on a material level. You want to buy a boat, the more money you have, you can buy a boat. Well, let's start with little things. So you want to buy a smartphone, you want to buy, I don't know, a new pair of jeans and so forth. So whatever you want to buy, the more money you have, the more you're able to do that. Okay, so that's the analogy in terms of materialism. And then you have the analogy of spiritual money. With spiritual achievements, like instead of buying buying material objects, getting spiritual things. So the more merit we have, the more. What is merit anyway? It's actually, what is merit?
Potential.
Pardon?
Potential.
Yeah, but where does that potential come from? What is another way to describe it? Well, it's actually karmic actions that leave behind some potential. So any virtuous action, leaves something behind in our mind. Of course, non-virtuous action do the same, but that's depth. That's not like money. That's kind of like, I don't know, having borrowed money, if you like having depth, basically. So we can't do anything with that. You're just in trouble. So virtuous actions, karmic actions, they don't get lost. They leave a seed in the mind. They leave something in the mind, some potential. And so they enable you to fulfill your wishes. If you have enough of these positive actions, then I wish to do this, I wish to do that, you're more likely to fulfill these wishes. Now, if you just use it for ordinary stuff, it's like a waste of money. It's like a waste of merit. Don't waste it on just ordinary things. If you have enough merit, then whatever you do, your wishes come true, basically, even on an ordinary level, sooner or later. So that's why a lot of people, they set out, they want to do something, and they're successful no matter what they do. Whereas us, we set out to do the same, and there's this obstacle and that obstacle, another obstacle. Ever wondered why sometimes for us everything goes wrong and for everyone else? But we also have times when things are just perfectly, they work out, no obstacles, everything works out fine. So from a Buddhist point of view, it's not random. No, it's not just coincidence. This person is lucky and this one is, no, nothing of that sort. It has to do with the actions of the past. So accumulating a lot of virtuous actions, then whatever you set out to do, you basically achieve it. Maybe some minor obstacles, but here we're not interested in that ordinary pleasure. Who cares, right? Stay in a 5-star hotel and then, after you've done it, the merit is gone, and it's just a memory. It's not meaningful to just enjoy and just enjoy good foods and so forth. That's not the point. Here is to accumulate merit to transform our mind. The most rewarding, the most long-term, the most beneficial way to use our merit, that positive potential that we've accumulated. Because then we really want to practice, reduce our aversion, reduce our attachment, which really makes us suffer. That's what makes us suffer. We feel like our anger, there's no light, of course. Wow, you're well equipped. What I was going to say. What was I just saying?
When well equipped.
Well equipped.
No, he was ready. You were ready.
Oh, you're right. Oh yeah, I even believed that. I did say well equipped. I remember that, but I forgot it was just yeah. All right. Merit. I talked about merit, right? Pardon?
The power of the object.
Yeah, that's true, but just that was the wider context. So if you have enough merit, so if we have enough merit, then we can work with our own afflictions. We can generate great compassion and so forth with less obstacles. Right now, what is the main obstacle to transforming our mind? Our mind. Duh. Right? It's our own mind. So we want to practice, but we don't feel like it. We feel it's boring. Or we are attached to this, that, and the other. So then if we accumulate a lot of virtue, then it's much easier to control the mind. It becomes easier to control the mind. If we want to, do some long-term retreat, for instance, well, it's not like we're never going to find the right place, we're never going to find the right conditions. So that's not going to happen. Or we want to study the Dharma. Sometimes we face all these obstacles, can't find a seat, the program is full, there's this problem, that problem, we get sick and so forth. Well, oftentimes, and I'm not saying in all cases, but there's just not enough merit. We have to accumulate more merit and purifying negativities. These are the two things that Lama Tsongkhapa very much focuses on. So they're the same, they're two sides of the same coin. Accumulate more merit and remove the negative karma which could clash with our merit. So obstacles, very, very important. And you can do that on a daily basis. It's not that difficult. Anyway, so therefore accumulating merit is considered to be so extremely important. Which is why we would make offerings, for instance. We support other practitioners. And supporting someone who is more highly advanced brings more merit. Right? Why is that? I mean, if they're less advanced, but they're still practicing, and they're higher advanced, and they're still practicing, so how come that we get more merit? They're both practicing really hard. They're working their butt off, for lack of a better way of putting it. I mean, they're working their, the sitting meditations will use their butt anyway. So, but no, they're really working hard. So why is it, how come that those who are more advanced, do you accumulate more merit? What do you think? Logically. There are always scientific reasons. I mean, like, call them scientific, whatever. There are always logical reasons for why that is true. What do you think?
You aspire to be like them.
You aspire to be like them. Well, even if you don't aspire to be like them, you give, one of them, you give a certain amount of money or whatever, or make an offering. You accumulate more merit if they're more advanced. What could be the reason?
They are closer.
They're closer to, right, okay, but how does that help you? How does that help you if they're closer to liberation, for instance?
It's not about the simple amount of happiness caused in the world.
Say again? He's saying that the positive impact on the rest of the world is greater. That's actually a really good point. I think he's right, because we don't live in bubbles. No one lives in a bubble. We all have an effect on the people around us. So the greater your mind, the more transformed your mind is, the weaker your afflictions, or the lesser afflictions that you have, the greater positive impact you have on the world, even without being a bodhisattva. I mean, let's not underestimate practitioners on the foundational vehicle. They're so inspirational. They may not have exactly the same effect as a bodhisattva has, but it's still incredible, amazing. I mean, talk about charismatic, how charismatic are they on a certain level when there's either no longer any self-centeredness or only weak self-centeredness. I mean, even us ordinary people, we can pick up on someone being really self-centered and someone being a lot less so. You spend some time with them, it becomes obvious. Some are pretending, of course, but you know, you can fool some people sometimes, but you can't fool all the people all the time. Such a clever sentence, right? I mean, we may pretend we're such great practitioners, but you know, sooner or later people pick up on it, like self-centeredness is there. So I think it's that the impact they have on others is so profound. So if you benefit them by way of making an offering, you're also supporting that impact on others, which is just positive. It's inspiring. The best way to teach the Dharma is through your own example. So these practitioners, the more advanced they are, they really teach by way of their own example. Anyway, so having clarified that, I think that's really the reason, the impact they have on everyone. Now, let's go back to what we were saying. Acharya Chandrakirti finds support in Arya Nagarjuna's Compendium of Sutra. Oh yeah, so first of all, he shows how much merit others accumulate by making offerings to them. Maybe I put up so there's more light from the iPad. There are 3 practitioners here. The 3 are trainees following faith, trainees following reality, and practitioners on the 8th stage. Okay. Now, here, with every explanation that is given, there's also something we can learn here. So, what is the difference between trainees following faith versus trainees following reality? Okay, trainees following faith are those who rely primarily on faith in the Buddha's teaching. That's okay, but there's another version that's better. They enter the path out of trust and devotion. So they enter possibly the path, here in this case, the path of self-liberation, without first analyzing or realizing emptiness, realizing ultimate reality, to see that the mind grasping at intrinsic existence is a mistaken consciousness that can be eliminated. So they don't really bother so much with emptiness and so forth. It's faith, right? They feel inspired, okay, self-liberation, personal liberation, that's great, that's wonderful, and they generate renunciation on the basis of that. It's possible. But there's a different type of category that is said to be better. Trainees following reality are those who use reasoning and analysis to establish emptiness before entering the path. So whichever path, whether it's the path towards self-liberation or towards enlightenment, they first wish to know whether the cessation of the root misconception and thereby the other afflictions is truly possible. So they apply wisdom. Does it make sense? Can I become liberated? Is that mind that holds on to intrinsic existence really not rooted in reality? So it's not mainly faith, but it's reasoning. And that is so much more powerful. So it's not saying that if you can't enter the path in the way the second trainee enters the path, don't do it in the first place. No one is saying that. For some, it's just, it's just analyzing everything and always applying reasoning seems tiresome. So never mind, just having faith. That's also great, but it's not as stable. It's not as stable, and you're much more likely to lose that faith. It's blind faith, not based on reasoning. The other one is really reliable. And we're always encouraged to be like the trainee following reality. Always question everything you do. When you come to Buddhist practice, question, analyze. That's why we spend so much time debating with each other, always questioning. It's not seen as disrespectful to say to our teacher, I don't think it's making sense what you just said. It's not seen as disrespectful, actually. You say it nicely, of course, in a respectful way. You can say, I don't think that makes sense. And then the teachers go, oh yeah, why not? Tell me why. So they encourage that kind of questioning. All right, so these are the 3 trainees. And then there are practitioners on the 8th stage. What does that mean? So those are the ones who approach the first result stream entry, or the they enter the first result, stream entry. As explained earlier, the progress of hearers can also be described in terms of 8 levels. That was described earlier. So entering stream entry, abiding in stream entry, entering once return, abiding in once return. So there are 8 levels. The 8th level here refers to entering stream entry with the numbering counted in reverse, beginning from the highest stage, the abider in the result of Arhat. So the highest stage for someone on the foundational vehicle is becoming an Arhat. That's stage number 8. Usually you count up, but sometimes the numbering is reversed. So the first stage is the result, and the 8th level is stream entry. So that's why the 8th level. So you have here 3 trainees. Okay, the one following faith, the one following reality, and the one stream entry. The Compendium of Sutras explains that compared to someone who offers every day the special food of 100 flavors and celestial garments, I mean just incredibly delicious food and good quality clothing, to an immeasurable number of trainees following faith. Okay, that's great, a great number of trainees following faith. The person who offers a single meal for just one day to a trainee following reality generates far greater merit. Okay, so there's a difference between the two. Again, I guess the effect on their practice and of course on others. Whether it's really like, they like to sometimes like these immeasurable numbers of trainees, you're wondering, really is the difference that great? I don't know. Anyway, definitely the message is there's a difference. Similarly, compared to someone who makes equally vast offerings to countless trainees following reality, the one who offers a single meal for a single day to a practitioner on the 8th stage generates still greater immeasurable merit. All right. From this comparison, it becomes clear that both the trainee following faith and the trainee following reality are still on the path of accumulation or the path of preparation. Because why? I mean, the one on the 8th stage could be a follower of reality or could be, right? It's not specified here. Whereas the practitioner on the 8th stage, by implication, must already be an Arya. The stream entry, the guy, the stream entry person must already be an Arya, because otherwise there would be no reason why the merit of making offerings to the latter would be so much greater. And so this confirms Acharya Chandakirti's position that the stage of entering stream entry can only occur on the path of seeing, and therefore at the level of Arya. That's the argument here. So this kind of analogy given by Arya Nagarjuna, he's saying the one of stream entry is greater than the other 2. And so it must be such the other 2 are on a lower level, and the third one, the 8th level, the stream entry person, is actually an Arya already. You can debate that, but never mind. That's the kind of logic that is applied here. Again, there's always room for a debate. There's always room for a discussion. Okay, so I raced through this. It's not such a big deal, but since Lama Tsongkhapa spent so much time on it, I thought to explain it, and it gives you some background information. At the very least, follow reality, don't follow faith. And of course, how to accumulate merit. So even if some of the details may be a little hazy and not that clear, but it gives us important information how we can practice ourselves. Accumulate merit, so important. If you're interested in transforming your own mind, making changes to your own life, you can try to change the world, but you're going to have a hard time. So changing our mind is the most effective way, and of course then we're more effective in trying to change others as well, not to forget. Anyway, the point is accumulating merit is important, and one way to do this is also support practitioners make certain offerings to beings who we know are highly advanced. It'll benefit us, and that's not selfish. In this case, if we use it in turn to transform our own mind and benefit others, then that merit is not selfish. Yeah, so those are some of the things that you may take with you today. The two types of bodhicitta, yes, so that is of course also important, that the bodhicitta, that is the actual bodhicitta, is that mind, the altruistic intention to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient being. So we can see its importance from everything we've done today. Anyway, we can leave it at that. So we got to page 108. Okay, great. How many more pages? 12 more until I finish the material. But I'm working on the next few pages. All right. First of all, any questions? Can't see you. Any questions?
Just a very short one.
Yes, please.
I practice in a different tradition, so the lingo and vocabulary is a bit different. I was wondering what's usually referred to by the word Arya.
Arya. What is an Arya? An Arya in the which is your tradition, if I may?
Zen.
Zen. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah, I don't know whether that's used in the Zen tradition, but Arya is like someone who's realized ultimate reality.
Yeah, I assume that.
Yeah. So that's an Arya. Yeah, that's the word for Arya. It's like someone described as noble, sometimes in English, noble or supreme. I mean, just having realized things as they are, experience them directly.
Yeah.
There's been, of course, a terrible abuse of the word Arya, especially in Germany. During this, that's where it comes from. And what I just found out in a documentary, actually, before the Second World War started, there was a delegation of German Nazis who traveled to Tibet because they had heard the Aryas live there. And so I saw this documentary of these Tibetans greeting like the traditional way the Tibetans greeting the Nazis. So they were looking for these Aryas because there was this obsession. They thought Arya had nothing to do with the mind, it had to do with the body, which is a total distorted view of what an Arya means. An Arya is someone who's got special mental capacities, qualities. So this was a total distortion. Hitler used a lot of like the swastika and these kind of Indian ideas and distorted them. And so they actually traveled, like I said, I saw this documentary, and then only with the beginning of the Second World War they had to leave Tibet and never went back. But yeah, they looked for the Aryas there.
What's the name of the documentary?
I don't remember. I'm pretty sure you find it online. But it was on the television last year when I was home. I saw it one evening. It came on the telly, but I'm pretty sure you'll find it. Yeah, there was a documentary about that. All right, other questions?
I have a question.
Yes, Tome?
So a bodhisattva who enters the Mahayana vehicle from the outset, so they have renunciation. So my question is, do they necessarily generate renunciation and bodhicitta at the same moment? Or can they generate renunciation before generating bodhicitta? And if they can generate renunciation before generating bodhicitta, does it mean that they enter the fundamental vehicle once they generated renunciation, but they haven't yet generated bodhicitta?
Yes. That's an important question. So I'll repeat Tome's question. Forgot to repeat your question before, what an Arya means. But so Tome's question was, what about a bodhisattva? A bodhisattva also generates renunciation. So do they generate renunciation before generating bodhicitta or simultaneously? If they generate a renunciation before bodhicitta, do they enter the foundational path? Do they enter the path of self-liberation? Okay, well, first of all, what is renunciation? That's the question. Renunciation, Tome, how would you define renunciation? The mind of renunciation.
I wish to be free from the root of suffering.
Pardon?
I wish to be free from the root of suffering. Be free completely.
The wish to overcome samsara and its causes. Right, okay, that's a good way of defining it. All right, so in general, I guess you could say the wish to overcome cyclic existence and its causes. All right. But does that necessarily cause you to enter the Hinayana or the foundational vehicle path? No, I think there are two versions of this mind. There's
the uncontrived realization of that.
Even uncontrived, even that naturally arising. I believe in the case of a bodhisattva? Well, first of all, the bodhisattva must generate renunciation before generating great compassion. Because what is great compassion? You wish for all sentient beings to be free from cyclic existence, from samsara and its causes. Unless you wish it for yourself, why would you wish it for someone else? Right? Unless you have overcome a certain degree of attachment, you have weakened a certain degree of attachment towards cyclic existence, you won't be able to, you won't want to overcome it. Right? You don't see the drawbacks of cyclic existence. And even if you have incredible love for sentient beings, if you're attached to cyclic existence, you want them to experience cyclic existence. Yeah? If you have love and compassion for someone, whatever you wish for yourself, you wish for them as well. That's why before you can have great compassion, you first need to focus yourself on the drawbacks of cyclic existence, understand that there's no lasting happiness, that even the happiness we experience is insignificant in comparison to what a liberated being would experience, that this is ridiculous and anyway it doesn't last, and so on and so forth. So really understanding the disadvantages of cyclic existence, and so based on that, once you fully understand that, you generate the wish, I want to be free from that, I don't want to experience this. I don't want to deprive myself of that incredible state of mind that I can develop potentially. And I don't, because right now I'm so attached to cyclic existence. So once you've generated that, the wish to overcome that, then you focus on other sentient beings. And if there's enough love and compassion, or at least affection towards sentient beings, then you wish them the same. Right? If you don't have renunciation, then your compassion, you may possibly wish them a little bit more happiness in samsara, because that's what you wish for yourself. Therefore, it has to precede great compassion. But there is a difference in that kind of, the kind of renunciation of someone who's already heading towards the bodhisattva path, because it's not at the exclusion of all others. It's you keep the door open, for lack of a better word. You keep the possibility open to enter the bodhisattva path. That's where your interest lies. Whereas there's someone who doesn't believe, for instance, that enlightenment is possible, or doesn't believe they can achieve Buddhahood, they would then feel, okay, so no, all sentient beings, yeah, I wished I could do something, but I first focus on my own liberation. So at the exclusion of enlightenment, they focus mainly on just becoming liberated. Tome, do you see the difference? So in one case, it's like all you want is to get out of samsara and nothing else. In the first case, in the case of someone who will become a bodhisattva soon, so in that case, it's like, yeah, I want to overcome samsara, but there's still that wish to also go in the direction of the universal vehicle. Does that make sense, Tommy? It's a different type of renunciation, in other words.
There is some problem. Like, what would you say would be the definition for entering the foundational vehicle?
Well, it's to attain personal liberation, and that's it. So nothing more but personal liberation. So you can already have the wish, at least a contrived wish or faith in the universal vehicle, and the wish to practice this. So if you have that kind of wish, that you generate also renunciation with the goal of eventually entering the universal vehicle, then you won't enter the foundational vehicle. But if that is not anything you're interested in, you just recognize the drawbacks of samsara and so forth, just generate the wish to become personally liberated, end of story, then you enter that path. Does that make sense? So you want to become an arhat. That's it. You just want to become an arhat. You can already wish for becoming a bodhisattva at the very least, or even wish for enlightenment without having bodhicitta, because that's, in the beginning, it's just a very coarse kind of wish. Does that make sense?
I still wonder, like, if someone has not uncontrolled realization of pronunciation, but doesn't have a realization of great compassion, what will make one go towards the universal vehicle and not towards the foundational vehicle? Because they already have a very strong power in their mind to move away from samsara.
So even if they have yes, they don't have renunciation. They have renunciations. Your question is if they have renunciation, but they don't have great compassion yet, what keeps them from entering the foundational path? Well, some will probably. You know, if your renunciation is so strong, and there is really not that much compassion. We even talk about like bodhisattvas on the foundation on the universal vehicle path, that there's still danger, especially in the beginning, to fall or to regress to the foundational vehicle. I mean, regress in the sense, of course, it's still amazing, but of course not as wonderful as entering the universal vehicle and doing it for the benefit of all sentient beings. The danger is always there. But let's not forget, before you have great compassion, you have a contrived version of that. And that already pushes you in one direction.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay. Any other questions? Otherwise, I'll start. I'll never catch up with all the questions that are here. Restored. The electrician just sent me a message that the power has been restored.
Oh, here.
Oh, every day. There's a light here.
Yeah, lights outside.
No power yet? I'm just sending you a message. Okay. All right. Let me just check. Where's the message? Where are the? Because I wrote them all down. I wrote them in the. Wait. There have been some great discussions that I thought I wanted to share with you, and we can continue next time. This is about phenomena don't exist inherently, and phenomena are being labeled. That we label, we have the thought, this is this, this is that, and therefore we can say, therefore it is this and that, and so forth. Okay, wait, where is it? So in that context, okay, Tika is saying there's power on the Kora. I can definitely see power at Kitty Monastery. All right. Okay, wait, let me just find it. Oh yeah, so Jimmy, he's saying, you remember with the first Dalai Lama, we talked about the first Dalai Lama. He was not called Dalai Lama. Yawa Gendendrup is how the Tibetans usually refer to him. Gelwa is like an honorific, and Gendendrup was his name. So he was posthumously, he was only at the time of the third Dalai Lama, they called Yawa Gendendrup the first Dalai Lama. Okay, so Jimmy says, and still we would say, okay, he was labeled the first Dalai Lama. He was the first Dalai Lama. He was, although he wasn't called such when he was around. So it doesn't have to happen, when we say everything is just labeled, it doesn't have to happen in that very moment. Remember, I gave you the analogy. We say, let's say this is 50 gram. This mala is 50 gram. It weighs 50 gram. This is true right now, but I don't have to weigh it right now for it to be true. It would be ridiculous that every time I say this is 50 gram, I have to weigh it. So similarly, we say everything is merely labeled, but I don't have to label it in that moment for that to be a mala, for instance. I don't have to call it every moment mala. Even if this is called a mala only in 10 years, I can say that it's a mala even at that point now, at this point right now. All right, so, but Jimmy is saying, Gendendrup was designated posthumously as the first Dalai Lama, which makes sense because only when the lineage and the valid basis, only then did the lineage and the valid basis for that label exist. But to claim that he was the first Dalai Lama during his lifetime seems illogical because the lineage didn't yet exist and the causes for that label were not complete. It feels like saying someone could sit on a not yet manufactured chair. Is there a logical explanation or refutation of this concern? You see what he's saying, right? So, okay, I can get that he was called that, but he wasn't the first Dalai Lama. That would be like sitting on the chair that doesn't exist yet. That's his argument. And then Tomer says, well, something exists conventionally if it fulfills three. So it exists if there are three conditions, or the three characteristics are fulfilled. His message was a little longer, but this is, he says it's from Lama Tsongkhapa's Great Stages of the Path to Enlightenment, or his treatise on the Great Stages of the Path to Enlightenment. It says, first of all, it's apprehended by an ordinary valid cognition, or actually by an ordinary conventional mind. No other conventional cognition contradicts it, and reasoning that examines ultimate reality does not refute it. So it's neither contradicted by a conventional mind nor by an ultimate mind. Okay, that's his argument, and he's absolutely right. And then there's someone called Albert, and this, I think it's a really, I really like this response. And then Bernd also says something similar. Before His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama was recognized, he was already the reincarnation of the 13th Dalai Lama. Wasn't he? Even though no one knew. Just not yet labeled as such. So that's the difference. There are phenomena that exist even if we do not yet recognize or label them. For example, someone may have an illness such as cancer that causes no symptoms. A kind of cancer at the beginning stage. They are unaware of it and have not applied a mental label, neither them nor anyone else. But the disease still exists and will only be identified and labeled later. So it would be ridiculous to say, well, they don't have cancer in that moment, just because no one refers to it yet. Yeah, so we could say later on, oh, they had cancer at that point in their life. Now we know. And they start labeling it. The same is true for the 14th Dalai Lama. Yes, when His Holiness was born, no one recognized him right from the beginning. It took a few years before he was recognized. And so therefore, he was already the reincarnation of the 13th. And then Bernd adds, just as someone driving an early VW Beetle, at the time, like let's say 50, 60 years ago, would not call it the first of a famous series, right? I mean, it became really famous. So driving an early one, so it was the first of a famous series. Gyaltsen Drup was not called, Gyaltsen Drup was not called the first Dalai Lama in his lifetime. The label came only later, once the lineage developed. He was simply a monk whose continuity later became part of the Dalai Lama series. Well, actually, he was not just a simple monk. He was actually a disciple of Lama Tsongkhapa. So he was already highly accomplished, and that's why they recognized him. I guess because of that connection. I don't know exactly the reasons, but yeah. Only retrospectively or posthumously, when the defining features of the lineage became clear, he was recognized as the first in that series. So this is interesting about labeling. It doesn't have to be labeled in that moment. And still, we say it is merely labeled. Then Jimmy says something else that I also really like, that I think is quite important. I've summarized these a little bit, but I think it's helpful for everyone. He says, conventional truth can be difficult to pin down. Yeah, that's true. Definitely. Because they do not always follow strict logical reasoning. Yeah. We accept conventions in different ways. For example, one way, and this is definitely the one that is probably the best way, I guess, through reason and evidence. So he gives the example, eating green vegetables is good for health. I mean, so we don't just make it up. There is powerful evidence that green vegetables are good for you. Then there's through authority or agreement. For instance, the border between the US and Mexico, right? It's got nothing to do with reasoning or something, oh, this should be here, it should be there. It's a matter of authority. Or through personal preference or emotion, saying Rihanna, is it Rihanna? Rihanna, right? Rihanna is a good singer, right? I mean, someone may disagree. Some would label good singer, one would say terrible singer, whatever. And even through mistaken beliefs or ignorance, witches' spells cause diseases. All right. Okay, so I don't know, they're flying cows, what have you. This raises the question, Do all of these qualify as valid conventions? Do all of these qualify as valid conventions? What about, okay, first of all, through reason and evidence, through authority, right, the country's, whatever country, through personal preference, and a mistaken. Which of these is not a valid labeling, or not validly or which is not conventionally true? Which one?
Mistaken.
The mistaken one. That's out. We can label anything. Of course, I can call, I don't know, this a cow, but that doesn't make it a cow. So I can be mistaken, of course. So we're not talking about phenomena being, just because they're merely labeled, they exist. That's not what we're saying. And this is where Thomas' three qualities are so important. This is not a cow. What is a cow? What does a cow mean? There's a definition. We don't just label something cow without a basis of labeling. And so you have a certain basis, a certain function it performs, and this one does not perform this function. Therefore, it's just a wrong label. It's in contradiction, it contradicts conventional cognition. All right. What about the other ones? Are they valid? So this was the question, are these all valid? Is it not contradicted by valid ordinary cognition? Is it not refuted by reasoning that analyzes ultimate reality? No, it's not refuted, but we're not talking about the ultimate here. So we're not saying it exists inherently and so forth, no. But it's contradicted by valid ordinary cognition, at least the last one. What about Rihanna as a good singer? Is that valid? Yeah. Kind of. I don't know whether she's a good singer, but I can't say, but it doesn't mean that everyone has to agree. What about beauty and ugliness? In relation to one person, it's beautiful. In relation to another person, it's not. Just a sec. I'm just going to write, I didn't finish the message before. Write to the electrician. Because he's going to go home. Okay. All right, so, therefore, I'm looking at the message, sorry. Yeah. So therefore, in relation to beauty and I mean, it's very subjective. That's true, but it's similar to, is this long or short? Depends. So either it's neither or it's both, right? It's short in relation to a broomstick, and it's long in relation to a matchstick, right? But either you say it's neither short nor long, or you say it's both. What do you opt for? Is it both long and short? Or is it neither? Both. Yeah, both. Both is better, because otherwise it's not long, it's not short. It's like, what? Because everything always exists in relation to something else. In relation to me, this is a table. In relation to a fish, that's not a table. Right? Or in relation to whatever, a dog, I mean, they're not going to put stuff on it, they may lie down on top of it. So therefore, in relation to a certain person, and this is not random, this is not just making things up, it's long in relation to one thing and short in relation, so we can say it's both. So now let's say beauty, beautiful or ugly. Watch out, it's my mala. No, I'm kidding. No, but you know, this mala here, is it beautiful or ugly? In relation to one person, it's beautiful. In relation to another person, it's ugly. Is it both? Yes. Sure, beautiful and ugly. There's no contradiction. It couldn't be beautiful in relation to one person and ugly in relation. Oh, it helped. That was fast. Okay, I have to thank him. Thank you. All right. So, therefore, it's both. It's beautiful and ugly. Does that make sense? Yeah. So, Rihanna, is she a good singer? Yes. Is she a bad singer? Yes. It sounds weird. We don't usually talk like that. But we could still say, oh, for this person, she's a really good singer. For that person, she's not. That's available. That's a... Oh, never mind. No, I'm not going to send again that message. He knows now. Okay. So, going back to this point here. Wait, let me just find it. I have to find it. Yes. So I would say all three, the first three are definitely valid. Rihanna's a good singer, the border to Mexico and so forth. All right. And then Jimmy also asked, what about the naming of the first Dalai Lama? Did it happen through authority? Was that a case of just authority? Well, part of the designation was established by the authority at the time. It was the Khan, not Genghis Khan, another Khan in Mongolia, who called the third Dalai Lama. Dalai means ocean. It's the Mongolian word for ocean. And Lama means, is the Tibetan word for guru, or for spiritual teacher. And so he basically called the third Dalai Lama an ocean of wisdom. So he called him Dalai Ocean Lama. And in that sense, therefore, this institution of the Dalai Lama was founded in that way by authority. But it was not just that. There was a recognized, of course, a recognized institution, but there's also a valid basis of designation. I didn't just call anyone Dalai Lama. There was a continuum of a certain mind stream. It was established that this was the reincarnation of the previous ones, and they also manifested certain qualities. Based on that, then they labeled him the first Dalai Lama, second, third, and so forth. So I think labeling is not arbitrary. It's not just authority. Authority in itself is not enough. You also need to have the qualities from the side of the Lama. Okay, from the side. From the side. I shouldn't use that word. The qualities of the Lama himself, not from the side of the object. Jimmy also made a point that I sometimes say that. And I thought I didn't, but just now caught myself saying it. All right. So then Jimmy asked a question, whether he could label himself Taylor Swift, the singer. To do so, he would need reasons and a group of people who accept that label, and they would need to avoid contradiction by valid cognition. Okay, but could he not just become her? This raises the question about whether multiple competing conventional labels can be considered valid, whether one convention can be more real than another. Who decides what counts as valid labeling, and whether different tailors would be equally real or equally unreal? Okay. Well, actually, the answer would be, first of all, how do you define Taylor Swift? I mean, the one Taylor Swift that, we probably all know, the way she looks. I've never seen Jimmy, but I don't think he looks like her. Right? I mean, so anyway, so a label is only valid if all three conditions are met, a suitable base of designation. You would need to actually be the person whose continuum is labeled Taylor Swift with her biography, talents, and past actions. If, of course, you decide anyone can become Taylor Swift, okay, then that's like the Tibetans. There are so many Tenzins, right? So many Tibetans called Tenzin because it's the name. Many of them received their names from His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and you get the one of the names, the first part of his name, which is actually Tenzin Gyatso, which we don't use. That would be rude to use it. We say His Holiness, but anyway, his actual given name is Tenzin Gyatso, his ordained name. And the first part of the name, Tenzin, is given to everyone who receives a name from His Holiness. So Tenzin Pema, Tenzin Tsering, and so forth. So there are lots of Tenzins around, and they're all Tenzins, but that's just because Tenzin doesn't refer to just one person. But Taylor Swift is a little different. So you have to have I mean, again, it depends on what you mean with Taylor Swift. Yeah, it's really just a name. But if you say it refers to her in particular, then he's not. Okay. And then Albert, he adds, he describes the difference between the convention of the Mexican border and the first Dalai Lama. He explains that some conventions are flexible. This is the last thing I'm going to say. I know time is up. He explains that some conventions are flexible, like the border between the USA and Mexico, which has changed over time, yet remained conventionally valid wherever it was drawn. I mean, it depends on who draws it, of course, but yeah. Other conventions, however, require a specific valid basis. Titles such as the Dalai Lama or Panchen Lama, another very high Lama, cannot be applied arbitrarily. The label is only conventionally valid if it corresponds to the actual reincarnation of the predecessors. So in answer to that, I would say that Albert correctly shows that conventions differ in flexibility, that's for sure. But it's also important to see how similar the two examples are. Both the US-Mexico border and the designation of a Dalai Lama share certain features. They require a valid basis. For the border, the valid basis is the geographic zone between USA and Mexico. It's not somewhere in Europe. That would be ridiculous. So there's a certain basis of labeling, and that is the area between what is usually called USA and Mexico. For the Dalai Lama, for this wholeness, the valid basis is the specific mind continuum. They require recognition by an appropriate authority. That's what they also have in common. And the border, for instance, becomes valid through treaties and agreements by different governments. A Dalai Lama becomes valid through recognition by the authority, the certain lineage, and those responsible for identifying the reincarnation. So they cannot be assigned arbitrarily. So I think there's a difference, but there's also similarities. I mean, table, for instance. If as a group of people we decide to call this a table, if it has this function, performs this function, has these characteristics, and we start calling it a table, that's okay. It always depends on the basis. Okay, what are the defining characteristics of something we call table? Okay, and then based on that, we can say it is a table or not. Yeah. Anyway, I thought that was really interesting how Jimmy brought in, for instance, the different types of labeling, and there's so many more. And then even within, among us, we differ. What is good, what is bad, what is delicious, what is beautiful, what is not. There's so many differences, but in general, I guess we would all agree this is a table. Right? Okay, anyway. Great, so let's now dedicate whatever virtue we've accumulated. In the snow-encircled land, you are the source of benefit and bliss. Avalokiteshvara, Denzin Gyatso, please remain in life until samsara ends. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. May the precious view of emptiness, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore. All right, thank you very much.